Hi, I'm Effie, and in this video I'm going to be running through my 2025 anticipated releases. If you're watching through this video and wondering, Effie, you read a lot of vampire books, why are there no vampire books on your anticipated releases list? The reason for that is that this is actually part 2 of 3 of my anticipated releases, the first being vampire books that I'm anticipating in 2025. And then in the third video, I'll be going through 2025 releases that I've been lucky enough to get arcs of and basically just giving my first impressions of those books. The format for this video is essentially going to be, you'll see my face at the start and the end, but as I'm going through the books, I will just put a card on screen that has the title, if known, the author, the release date, if known, and a picture of the cover, again, if that's been released, as well as the synopses that I'm reading. I'm doing this because if you're anything like me, it's a lot easier to be able to listen when you can follow along visually. It also means that you've got the choice of watching this video or listening to this video if you'd rather do one or the other. In terms of commentary I have about these books, if I have anything in particular to say, I will, but for the most part this is just going to be a rundown of the books and their synopses. I hope that's okay. We've got a number of books to get through, so let's just jump straight in. Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear by Shauna Maguire releases on the 7th of January. I believe this has got different release dates depending on format, but I guess the 7th is the earliest this book's out. This is the 10th book in the Wayward Children series, I believe. However, they all can be read as standalones if you so choose. Nadia had 3 mothers. The one who bore her, the country that poisoned her, and the one who adopted her. Nadia never considered herself less than whole, not until her adoptive parents fitted her with a prosthetic arm against her will. Seeking to replace the one she'd been missing from birth, it was cumbersome, it was uncomfortable, it was wrong. It wasn't her. Frustrated and unable to express why, Nadia began to wander, until the day she fell through a door into Bellyrekia, the land beneath the lake, and found herself in a world of water, filled with child-eating amphibians, majestic giant turtles, and impossible ships that sailed as happily beneath the surface as on top. In Bellyrekia, she found herself understood for who she was, a drowned girl who had made her way to her real home, accepted by the river and its people. But even in Bellyrekia, there are dangers and trials. Nadia would soon find herself fighting to keep hold of everything she had come to treasure. Also releasing on the 7th of January, we have Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker. Cora Zhang is a crime scene cleaner, but the bloody messes don't bother her. Not when she's already witnessed the most horrific thing possible, her sister being pushed in front of a train. But the killer was never caught, and Cora is still haunted by his last words, Bat Eater. These days, nobody can reach Cora, not her aunt who wants her to prepare for the Hungry Ghost Festival, not her weird colleagues, and especially not the slack-jawed shadow lurking around her doorframe. After all, it can't be real, can it? After a series of unexplained killings in Chinatown, Cora believes that someone might be targeting East Asian women, and something might be targeting Cora herself. Soon she will learn you can't just ignore hungry ghosts. Releasing on the 20th of January, we have The Tongue is Sharp, which all we really know about it is that it's an anthology of feminine rage, with the proceeds going towards the ACLU. Coming on the 30th of January, we have The Lamb by Lucy Rose. A folktale, a horror story, a love story, an enchantment. Margot and Mama have lived by the forest since Margot can remember. When Margot isn't at school, they spend quiet days together in their cottage, waiting for strangers to knock on their door. Strays, Mama calls them. Mama loves the strays. She feeds them wine, keeps them warm. Then she satisfies her burning appetite by picking apart their bodies. But Mama's want is stronger than her hunger sometimes, and when a white-toothed stray named Eden turns up in the heart of a snowstorm, little Margot must confront the shifting dynamics of her family, untangle her own desires, and make a bid for freedom. Releasing on the 18th of February, we have Cursebound by Sarah L. Arifi. And this is the first of several sequels that I've got on my anticipated list. And, the last thing I want is to spoil books for you. So each time we come across a sequel, I will be giving a wee little blurb about the first book in the series. So Cursebound is the sequel to Feybound, and the little synopsis I've written for that is: Yiran is a warrior in the Elven army and has known nothing but violence her whole life. Her sister, Lettel, is trying to make a living as a diviner, seeking prophecies of a better future. When a fatal mistake leads to Yiran's exile from the Elven lands, they are both forced into the terrifying wilderness beyond their borders. On the 20th of February, we have a re-release of a classic book, and it is Yesterday Will Make You Cry by Chester Himes. Thrill-seeking teenager Jimmy Monroe is serving a 20-year sentence for robbery in the state penitentiary, where terror and chaos reign, corrupt guards inflict casual violence, and men try to preserve their dignity amid isolation and inhumanity. When a fire breaks out, setting hell and mayhem loose, it seems Jimmy's entire world is unraveling. But as he develops a tender relationship with fellow convict Rico, hope begins to glimmer, and through his eventual foray into writing, something resembling redemption. Originally published in 1952 in an expurgated version as Cast the First Stone, Yesterday Will Make Me Cry draws on Chester Himes' own youthful experiences of imprisonment to face down the scouring truths of harm and love. Coming on the 27th of February, Our Infinite Fates by Laura Stephen. Maybe that's all love is, in the end, an endless tempting of fate. Evelyn can remember all her past life. She can also remember that in every single one, she's been murdered before her 18th birthday. The problem is that she's quite fond of the one she's in now, and more importantly, her sister needs her for bone marrow transplants to stay alive. So now she has to 1. Find the centuries-old enemy who hunts her through each life and destroy them forever. 2. Figure out exactly why she's being hunted in the first place. And 3. Try quite hard not to fall in love with them again. On the 27th of February, we have Carrion Crow by Heather Parry. There are some facts about the world that only your mother can teach you. Marguerite has been confined for the sake of her well-being. That's what her mother had said. Marguerite Perigord is locked in the attic of her family home, a towering Chelsea house overlooking the stinking Thames. For company, she has a sewing machine, Mrs. Beaton's book of household management, and a carrion crow who has come to nest in the rafters. Restless, she spends her waning energies on the fascinations of her own body, memorizing Mrs. Beaton's advice and longing for her life outside. Cecile Perigord has confined her daughter Marguerite for her own good. Cecile is concerned that Marguerite's engagement to a much older, near penniless solicitor will drag the family name, her husband's name that is, into disrepute. And for Cecile, who has worked hard at her own betterment, this simply won't do. Cecile's life has taught her that no matter how high a woman climbs, she can just as readily fall. Of course, both have their secrets, intentions, and histories to hide. As Margarita's patience turns into rage, the boundaries of her mind and body start to fray, and neither woman can recognise what the other is becoming. Coming on the 4th of March, You Killed Me First by John Mars. 3 women, 3 smouldering secrets, who will make it out alive. It's 5th of November and a woman awakens to a nightmare. Bound and gagged, she lies trapped in the heart of a towering bonfire. As the smoke thickens, panic sets in. She's moments away from being engulfed in flames. How did it come to this? Rewind 11 months. Margot, a faded TV star, and her long-suffering friend Anna watch as glamorous Liv and her flawless family move into their street. The 3 women soon fabricate the perfect pretense of friendship, but each harbours her own deadly secret. A newcomer Liv senses something is terribly wrong beneath the polished exteriors. As cracks widen in the veneer of perfection and lies escalate out of control, tension ignites. Bonfire night is approaching and someone is set to burn. But who will it be? With regards to this book, I'm particularly interested in it because at the point that it comes out, I will have read all 12 of John Mars's books, and my past experience of his work, and I say this having not caught up on his most recent two, but I will have at the point this book comes out. So all of John Mars's books are thrillers, but they largely come into two camps. You've got the thrillers as you usually expect, and then you've got the sci-fi thrillers. And my experience with his writing tends to be that his non-sci-fi thrillers are much stronger, much tighter. I do think some of the books that he wrote towards the start of his career are not as strong, but they're still engaging and they still keep you on the edge of your seat. I also feel like he does a really good job of not pulling his punches, which I really appreciate in his writing style. Coming on the 21st of March, we have A Hemorrhage of Us by Rosalind Reed. Rain has always known that she is different. From the clothes that she wears to the rare illness that haunts her, she has always been set apart in her rural town of Bury, a place she thought she had escaped forever. But the sudden death of her parents drags her back to the shadows of her childhood home, where dark secrets linger and whispers of the past refuse to die. There, amidst a spirit-drenched forest, she encounters Hawthorne, a captivating and terrifying figure that awakens something within her that she can't ignore. Their connection is electric, drawing Rain into a world where desire and fear entwine, a world where promises are made and kept in blood. As their bond deepens, so does the threat looming over them. Powerful forces conspire to keep them apart, and the ties that draw them together may condemn them to a fate worse than they could ever imagine. Releasing on the 25th of March, we have Space Brooms by A.G. Rodriguez. Everyone aboard Kilgore Station is living their best life. Everyone except for Johnny Gomez. While humans, the augmented, and aliens of all shapes and sizes enjoy exotic cuisine on their dining deck or gamble away their credits on the entertainment deck, Johnny is elbow deep in oily, black, alien excrement, a space broom custodian for the entire station. This was obviously not the life Johnny dreamt of. 10 years ago, he travelled to Kilgore, the farthest space station in our solar system, in search of fortune like everyone else. Some people are just luckier than others. Yet his uneventful existence is immediately turned upside down when he happens upon a tiny glass data chip hidden amongst the alien poop he must clean up. Unbeknownst to him, every nefarious creature in the solar system will soon be after him to claim it for their own. With the help of his augmented roommate, pair of smugglers, and a mysterious and beautiful stranger, Johnny fights off thugs and sails as fast as possible to Earth's moon, Luna, in effort to sell the chip to the Urbino crime syndicate. But with assassins and mobsters on their tail, the trip is anything but a cakewalk, and Luna itself proves to be nothing like a safe haven when Johnny's painful past finally catches up to him. On the 1st of April, we have This Monster of Mine by Shalini Abeysekara. She knows the taste of death. He'll stoke her hunger for it. 18-year-old Sarai doesn't know why someone tried to kill her 4 years ago, but she does know that her case was closed without justice. Hell-bent on vengeance, she returns to the scene of the crime as a petitor, a prosecutor who can magically detect lies, and is assigned to work with Tetra Kadra. Ice cold and perennially sadistic, Kadra is the most vicious of the 4 judges who rule the land, and prime suspect in a string of deaths identical to Sarai's attempted murder. Certain of his guilt, Sarai begins a double life, solving crimes with Kadra by day and plotting his ruin by night. But Kadra is charming, and there's something alluring about the wrath he wields against the city's corruption. But when the evidence she finds embroils her in a deadly political battle, Sarai must also fight against her attraction to Kadra, because despite his growing hold on her heart, his voice matches the only memory she has of her assailant. Coming on the 3rd of April, we have Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. Where there's a will, there's a war. Thea Wren, brilliant CEO of Ren Fair Magitech, is dead. As the father of modern technology, he leaves an incredible legacy. But which of his 3 telepathically and electrokinetically gifted children could inherit the Renfair throne. Merida, head of her own profitable company, has recently cured mental illness. If only her journalist ex-boyfriend wasn't set on exposing what she really is, a total fraud. Arthur, second youngest congressman ever, wants to do everything right, except his wife might be leaving and he's losing his re-election campaign. Heading Renfair could relaunch his sinking ship. Ailey was a world-famous ballerina until a life-altering injury. Gaining the company might finally validate her worth. On the pipeline of gifted kid to clinically depressed adult, nobody wins. Yet, as they gather to read his final words, which Ren will come out on top? Ai-Jang's newest book, A Palace Near the Wind, comes out on the 8th of April. Sometimes called windwalkers for their ability to command the wind, unlike their human rulers, the Feng people have bark faces, carved limbs, arms of braided branches, and hair of needle threads. Bound by duty and tradition, Liu Lufeng, the eldest prince of the Feng royalty, is the next bride to the human king. The negotiation of bride wealth is the only way to stop the expansion of the humans so that the Feng can keep their lands, people, and culture intact. As the eldest, Lu Feng should be the next in line to lead the people of Feng, and in the past, that made her sisters disposable. Thankful that her younger sister, Chuleo, is too young for a sacrificial marriage, she steps in with plans to kill the king to finally stop the marriages. But when she starts to uncover the truth about her people's origin and realizes Chuleo will never be safe from the humans, she must learn to let go of duty and tradition, choose her allies carefully, and risk the unknown in order to free her family and shape her own fate. Killing It by Mike Bokovin comes out on the 15th of April. Since the late 1980s, the Square had been one of the most important clubs in New York for the alt comedy scene. But before that, it was something much darker and is now a place where evil lingers, waiting for a chance to spill blood. After a night of killing on stage, 4 comics find themselves in a desperate situation as the spirits of the past come out to play, and a fight for laugh becomes a fight for survival in the most unlikely of places. Coming out on the 22nd of April, we have Remember by Patricia Smith. Portia Willows was a senior in high school in Los Angeles when her world fell apart. While dealing with the aftermath of the accident that took the lives of her mother and sister, she finds herself forced to face her own memory, which may not be quite what it seems. But Portia suffers from severe social anxiety that prevented her from having any sort of life, while her little sister, Piper, was her best and only friend. Now, 5 years later, Portia is forced to recall the events of the past while being questioned about a horrific crime she doesn't remember. During those years, Portia had created a toxic, agoraphobic life with her father, cigarettes and alcohol her only companions, unable to cope with her loss. That is, until Ethan Torp moved in across the street and changed Portia's perspective in ways she could not possibly comprehend. But the truth always catches up with you, and fantasies never last. Down in the Sea of Angels by Khan Wong comes out on the 22nd of April. In the year 2106, climate change has altered the world, transforming borders, cities, and socio-economic structures. Additionally, a cosmic event known as the Bloom has awakened psionic abilities in a small percentage of the population. One such individual is Maida Sun, who possesses the ability of psychometry, a gift that allows her to touch an object and know its entire history. Newly employed by the Golden Gate Cultural Recovery Project in the area once known as San Francisco Bay, she must learn how to navigate the parameters of her abilities as well as the politics of the organization she works for, until a chance encounter with a political leader's watch reveals a plan to eliminate psionic powers and the people who possess them, people like her. Terrified but left with few options, Maida continues her work at the project when she stumbles upon a teacup and is psychically plunged into the lives of 2 of its previous owners. Nathan Zhao of 2006, a bourgeois bohemian working his corporate design job while longing for greater purpose, and Li Nuan of 1906, an indentured servant in a Chinatown brothel. On discovering that these two people are distant relatives of her, a strong psychic connection is made, and Maida realizes she can use the conduit of the teacup to send a message back through time, giving her the chance to warn her ancestors of the coming climate collapse and save her own life. Coming out on the 29th of April, we have the somewhat delayed A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. Sarah Swan was once one of the most powerful witches in Britain. Then she resurrected her great aunt, lost most of her magic, befriended a semi-villainous talking fox, and was exiled from her magical guild. Now she runs an inn in Lancashire where she deals with her quirky guests' shenanigans, tries to keep the fox in check, and longs for the magical future she lost, until she discovers an old spellbook that could hold the secret to restoring her power, and turns to Luke Larson, brilliant historian and human glacier. Luke has his own reasons for staying at the inn, and none of them involve letting certain grumpy innkeepers past his icy walls. So no one is more surprised than he when he not only agrees to help, but also finds himself thawing. As Luke and Sarah work together to decipher the book, Sarah starts to realize that love and the family she's made could be the best magic of all. Coming on the 6th of May, we have the newest Joe Abercrombie, called The Devils. Europe stares into the abyss. Plague and famine stalk the land. Monsters lurk in every shadow, and greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions. Only one thing is certain: the elves will come again, and they will eat everyone. Sometimes only the darkest paths lead towards the light, paths on which the righteous will not dare to tread. And so, buried beneath the sacred splendour of the celestial palace is the secret chapel of the Holy Expeditionary. For its congregation of convicted monsters, there are no sins that have not been committed, no lines that have not been crossed, and no mission that cannot be turned into a disastrous bloodbath. Now the hapless Brother Diaz must somehow bind the worst of the worst to a higher cause, to put a thief on the throne of Troy, and unite the sundered church against the coming apocalypse. When you're headed through hell, you need the devils on your side. Silver Elite by Danny Francis comes out on the 6th of May as well. 20-year-old Ren Darlington is not your ordinary mod. She's one of the most powerful in existence. But her world is divided. On the continent, being a known modified means certain death. As the primes, those immune to the biotoxin that nearly wiped out the population 150 years ago, want nothing more than to eliminate those who were enhanced by the toxin and develop psychic powers. Ren has survived all these years by concealing her abilities and keeping a low profile while doing what she can to aid the rebel uprising in fighting against the Primes' oppressive rule. But one careless mistake places her in the crosshairs of the continent's military, and she is forced to join their most elite program, Silverblock. Unwittingly, her enemy has given her, and the uprising, the perfect opportunity to strike a devastating blow from inside their ranks. That is, if she can keep her powers hidden, survive training, and prove herself to Cross Redden, her cocky, maddeningly attractive commanding officer. Despite the explosive chemistry between them, Ren cannot let Cross get in the way of her mission. But as war rages between mods like her and those who aim to destroy them, emotions run high and secrets are revealed, forcing Ren to decide how far she's willing to go to protect herself and how much of the continent is worth saving. So this sounds like peak 2010s sort of era dystopian, and it sounds really nostalgic. Releasing on the 8th of May, we have Somadina by Akwaeke Emezi, a sweeping YA fantasy inspired by indigenous Igbo culture, dubious deities, magic, and a twin hunting down her kidnapped brother. We had done and survived unimaginable things. Our world was so much bigger than our town, the river full of crocodiles, and these forests we'd grown up. There was an entire sea out there to prove it. Somadina and her twin brother Jaike are practically the same person. They finish each other's sentences and make each other whole. When the twins come of age, begin to develop. But while Jaike's powers enchant, Sommerdina's caused fear to ripple through her town. Always an outsider, Sommerdina now faces blatant and dangerous hostility, and things go from bad to worse when her brother, the one person she trusted, vanishes. Sommerdina knows that no matter the dangers, she must track him down, even if it means entering the sacred forest, even if it means grueling otherworldly travel she may not survive, even if it means finding the hidden places where the closest to the spirit world don't dare to go. Does Sommerdina have strength within both her body and her soul for the trying journey ahead? Coming out on the 13th of May, we have Emily Tascher's new book, The Incandescent. And the reason this is on my list is because I read the first 150 pages of Some Desperate Glory and was absolutely obsessed, and I just need more. Dr. Walden is the director of magic at Chetwood Academy and one of the most powerful magicians in England. Her days consist of meetings, teaching A-level invocation to 4 talented, chaotic sixth-formers, more meetings, and securing the school's boundaries from demonic incursions. Walden is good at her job. No, Walden is great at her job. But demons are masters of manipulation. It's her responsibility to keep her school, with its 600 students and centuries-old legacy, safe. But it's possible the entity Walden most needs to keep her school safe from is herself. Also coming out on the 13th of May, we have Cheddar Luck Next Time by Beth Cato. Cheese-obsessed Bird Eccles has just inherited her grandmother's estate in a quiet, quirky Californian town. But when a body is found on her property, her life begins to get rather loud. Bird Nichols is ready to make a fresh start in a familiar place. Last year, her parents died together in a car crash, and her beloved grandmother is presumed dead from an ocean drowning. Bird is now moving onto her grandmother's California coastal property and finally living out her dream. Bird loves cheese like nothing else. It's her autistic special interest, and she designs her boards along her sensory needs. And other people love them too. But just when everything seems to be going right, the local troublemaker ends up dead on her rural road. Grizz, the closest thing Bird has to family, is the sheriff department's favourite suspect, but she is determined to prove Grizz's innocence. So now Bird needs to unpack her possessions, assemble her pretty cheese boards, and find the true murderer before they strike again. Also coming out on the 13th of May, we have Be Mine by Lizzie Barber. Beth is a new mother struggling to find her place in the world. She is exhausted, mentally and physically, but her anxieties are not simply the fears of a first-time mum. A terror burns in her, fueled by a secret past she is lucky to have escaped. When a letter arrives bearing only the infinity symbol, Beth knows immediately it's from them, and that her past is finally catching up with her. 10 years earlier, on the heels of a messy breakup, Beth meets the effervescent Marissa, who introduces her to Elixir, a health and wellness organisation that will change Beth's life forever. She quickly becomes intoxicated and convinced that it is the solution to all her problems. No task is too great, even as the grueling exercise classes become more frequent, even as the therapy sessions become more costly, even as their requests become demands. Beth convinces herself that this is what she wants. But when she falls for the brand's enigmatic leader, Tate, she can't imagine her life without Elixir. But as Beth's star begins to rise, Marissa's starts to fall. And though Marissa tries to warn her of the darkness lurking beneath the brand's gleaming exterior, Beth finds she cannot let go. Yet another book coming out on the 13th of May. We've got A Fairy Hunter's Guide for the Recently Undead by Cynthia Priff. A fairy hunter desperate to save herself, a blighted knight hunting for his freedom, a looming war. Unexpectedly resurrected, Gwendolyn finds herself kidnapped by her mortal enemy, the Fae. A distressing prospect, considering her monster-hunting mother trained her to eradicate them. Worse, a bargain has been struck with the Fairy Lord on her behalf, and Gwendolyn knows too well that such deals always come with a terrible price. Trapped in the Fairy Lord's glittering court each night, and banished back to her own world upon waking, Gwendolyn must find the terms of her bargain quickly if she hopes to survive and outsmart him. Yet, despite her inherited hatred of Fae, the fairy lord is not without his charms. Gwendolyn struggles to resist his allure when every time they meet he offers her anything she could ever wish, a bargain that would no doubt cost her entire soul in trade. She soon discovers the only creature in this twisted realm she can truly trust is a man as trapped as herself, a blighted knight made from the pieces of 100 failed heroes. Cursed down to his literal bones, he cannot help but hunt her on his master's orders. Despite this, Gwendolyn's heart aches for him, his situation so very like her own. She knows, despite his insistence, that she cannot trust him, that if she were to break his curse, they might actually stand a chance of fighting their way out together. Coming out on the 20th of May, we have The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. Aymar Castle has been under siege for 6 months. Food is running low and there's been no sign of rescue. But just as the survivors consider deliberately thinning their number, the castle stores are replenished, the sick are healed, and the divine figures of the Constant Lady and her saints have arrived despite the barricaded gates, offering succor in return for adoration. Soon, the entire castle is under the sway of their saviours, partaking in intoxicating feasts of terrible origin. The war hero, Sir Voin, gives her allegiance to the Constant Lady. Phosine, a disorganized, nun-turned-sorceress, races to unravel the mystery of these new visitors and exonerate her experiments as their source. And in the bowels of the castle, a serving girl, Trillia, is torn between her thirst for a secret vengeance against Voin and the desperate need to escape from the horrors that are unfolding within Aymar's walls. As the castle descends into bacchanalian madness, forgetting the massed army beyond its walls in favour of hedonistic ecstasy, these 3 women are the only ones to still see their situation for what it is. But they are not immune from the temptations of the castle's new masters, or each other, and their shifting alliances and entangled pasts bring violence to the surface. To save the castle and themselves will take a reimagining of who they are and a reorganisation of the very world itself. Coming on the 27th of May, we have the highly anticipated finale to Ben Alderson's Realm of the Fae series, and that is A Game of Monsters. This series begins with a betrayal of Storms and a very quick overview of a betrayal of Storms. Robin has faced scorn for his half-fae heritage his whole life. However, he never expected to be kidnapped and sold for coin to fae hunters. His life is irrevocably changed as he is thrust into the world of the fae and discovers secrets to his heritage. However, he is also faced with a brewing storm in the form of an impending war. Will Robin be able to harness his birthright and avert disaster, all the while falling for the surly fae who has been assigned to guard him? Coming out on the 3rd of June, we have Rory Power's Kill Creatures. Last summer, Nan's best friends disappeared into Salt Cedar Canyon. She spent the year since grieving their loss and avoiding questions about what happened that night. Now, on the anniversary, she's ready to say goodbye, and so are the girls' family, who have reconvened to hold a memorial. But their vigil is interrupted by the shocking return of one of the missing girls alive. Everybody is overjoyed. Everybody, that is, except Nan, who was pretty sure they were dead. After all, she's the one who killed them. Coming out on the 10th of June, we have H.E. Edgman's latest novel, We Can Never Leave. You can never go home. Every day, all across the world, inhuman creatures are waking up with no memory of who they are or where they came from, and the caravan exists to help them. The travelling community is made up of these very creatures and their families who've acclimated to this new existence by finding refuge in each other. That is, until the morning 5 teenage travellers wake to find their community has disappeared around them overnight. Those left are half human who only just ran back to the caravan with their tail between their legs. 2 brothers, one who can't seem to stay out of trouble and the other who's never brave enough to get in it. A venomous girl with blood on her hands and a heart of gold, and the caravan's newest addition, a disquieting shadow in the shape of a boy. They'll have to work together to figure out what happened the night of the disappearance. But each one of the Forsaken Five is white-knuckling their own secrets, and with each truth forced to light, it becomes clear that this isn't really about what happened to their people, it's about what happened to them. Awakened by Laura Elliott comes out on the 10th of June. Science has stolen sleep and awakened a world of horror. I've been an insomniac all of my life, but I'm not sleepless and I won't become sleepless, just as long as the chips that were put into their heads never get put into mine. There's little chance of that, since I won't put the machinery into my brain, and neither will Edgar, and neither will the professor, and we're the only three left who could. I don't want to be sleepless. Civilization has ended. In a bid to make us more productive, to give us more time, science took sleep from humanity, but sleeplessness turned people into feral monsters, and now a small group of scientists are trapped in the Tower of London, consumed by guilt at what they have done and desperately searching for a cure. And then one day, as the last ravens circle, two miraculous survivors walk into the tower. Are they the answer, or a terrible question? The Elrian Code by B.F. Peterson comes out on the 24th of June, described as Fourth Wing meets the Atlas Six in this epic fantasy set in an elite university where 4 students test their mettle to become part of an elite order of dragon riders. Estham University has long stood as a pillar of equal opportunity, a place where any youth of Elrian can apply to become part of the Edri, an elite order of dragon-riding, magic-wielding peacekeepers. High Prince Jaden seeks an escape from his father's political machinations. Though his recklessness attracts respect from several classmates, it also nurtures the ire of others, including Jan, a common-born student who seeks to recall memories that she purposely wiped before the start of term. Smitten with Jan, Dayar finds himself increasingly torn between allegiances to his heart, his religion, and the House Norani, and as the first Norani royal to attend Estham in a century, Princess Christina is determined to not let anyone or anything stand in her way. But as evidence of corruption surfaces within the order, the students will have to re-examine their future and the roles they wish to play as an Edri, if they aren't expelled first. Releasing on the 26th of June, we have A Treachery of Swans by A.B. Perinek, an enthralling sapphic retelling of Swan Lake for fans of Alison Saft and V. Schwab. Magic has long been outlawed in Oriel. Adele has always known that she'd be the one to restore it. Raised by a sorcerer, Adele has spent years preparing for the heist of a lifetime. It's relatively simple. Impersonate a princess, infiltrate the palace, steal the great scepter, and restore magic to the kingdom. But when the king is unexpectedly murdered, she's forced to recruit the help of Marie, the real princess, and the two to unravel a web of lies and deceit that leaves Adele uncertain of who to trust. Soon, though, Adele must decide her mission or the girl she's falling for. The fate of the kingdom depends on her making the right choice. On the 1st of July, we have a new book from Marika Nieschamp called After We Burned. She deserved more. They all did. A terrible accident, a horrible loss, a regrettable tragedy. That's all anyone in Phoenix can talk about when a fire consumes the local high school, taking the life of a student. The town mourns, except who really knew, let alone cared about Eden, when she was alive. And why was she in the building that night? 5 teens each hold a piece of the truth about what happened. They also have their own secrets. Secrets they will fight to protect with the same fury as the blaze that killed Eden. But silence is meant to be broken, and this story can't be extinguished. On the 1st of July, Tiffany D. Jackson has a new book called Blood in the Water. This summer, beware of sharks. Tiffany D. Jackson makes her thrilling middle grade debut with a can't put it down murder mystery set on Martha's Vineyard. Brooklyn girl Kehlani McKinnon feels like a fish out of water. She's spending the summer with family friends in their huge house on Martha's Vineyard, and the vibe is definitely snooty. Still, there are beautiful beaches, lots of ice cream, and a town full of fascinating black history, plus a few kids her age who seem friendly. Until the shocking death of a a popular teenage boy rocks the community to its core. Was it a drowning, a shark attack, or the unthinkable? Murder. Kaylani is determined to solve the mystery, but her investigation leads her to uncover shocking secrets that could change her own life as she knows it if she survives. On the 3rd of July, we're getting a sequel that can be read as a standalone to Honey and Spice, and it's called Sweet Heat, and it's by Bolu Babalola. Not every relationship makes it out of university, but Kiki and Malachi were supposed to be forever. Everything was perfect until it all went up in flames. 3 years after their epic breakup, Kiki's worked hard to forget her first love, but just as she thinks she's got her life under control, jumping into the distractions of her romance by calendar invite boyfriend and plans for her best friend Amina's wedding, Kiki's career implodes, the family business teeters on collapse, and Malachi returns. As Malachi takes up his role as best man opposite her maid of honor, suddenly Kiki can think of nothing else. Their simmering chemistry, what went wrong, and why it is now impossible to act normal around each other. Juggling a new job, the prospect of her parents' restaurant being sold, and keeping her best friend from going full bridezilla, dealing with the ex is the last thing she needs. But somehow the spark between them is only getting hotter and threatening to ruin everything. They just have to get through the wedding, so why does it feel like playing with fire? On the 3rd of July, we have Julie Soto's Rose in Chains. The war is over, the dark forces have won, and the hero who was supposed to save them is dead. Captured as her castle is overrun by the enemy, Princess Bryony Rosewood is stripped of her magic and auctioned off to the highest bidder. She's sold to Tovin Hurst, a scion of a family known for their cruel control of magic and her long time and unresolved infatuation. Yet despite the horrors of her new world and the role she must play within it, all is not lost. Help and hope may yet arrive from the most unlikely of places. So the next book we've got is Ascension by S.C. Gibson, and it comes out on the 8th of July. This is the second book in the Summoner's Circle series, but I've basically gone through the synopses and removed anything that would be a spoiler for Evocation. So, if you're going to read this series, start with either Evocation, which is book 1, or Odd Spirits, which is book 0.5, and then move on to Ascension. Ever since Rhys McGowan was a boy, he's only wanted 2 things: power and love. Rhys is finally at peace, but when a strange ritual rocks Boston's occult community and opens his secret society up to sabotage, Rhys delves even deeper into the dark world of demon summoning. He's used to carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, but the strain of managing so many spirits, not to mention the stress of his loved ones exploring other people, will push him to the brink. As heaven and hell play tug of war for Rhys's soul, he'll have to face the greatest demon of all, his own insatiable ambition. Every Step She Takes by Kelly Armstrong comes out on the 8th of July. Genevieve has secrets that no one knows. In Rome, she can be whoever she wants to be. Her neighbours aren't nosy, her Italian passable. The shopkeepers and restaurant owners now see her as a local, and they let her be. It's exactly what she wants. One morning, after getting groceries, she returns to her 500-year-old Trevestero apartment. She climbs to the very top of the staircase, the stairs narrowing the higher she goes. When she gets to her door, she puts down her bags and pushes the key into the lock, and the door swings open. It's unlocked. Sometimes she doesn't lock it because break-ins aren't common in Rome, but Genevieve knows she locked the door behind her this morning. She has no doubt. She should leave, call the police. What if someone is in her apartment waiting for her? But she doesn't. The apartment is empty and exactly as she left it, perfectly tidy and not a thing out of place, except for the small box on her kitchen table, a box that definitely wasn't there this morning, a box postmarked from the US, a box that is addressed to Lucy Callahan, a name that she hasn't used in 10 years. On the 15th of July, we have Dark Chapter by Winnie M. Lee. Vivian is a cosmopolitan Taiwanese-American tourist who often escapes her busy life in London through adventure and travel. Johnny is a 15-year-old Irish teenager living a neglected life on the margins of society. He has grown up in a family where crime is customary, violence is a necessity, and everything and anyone can be yours for the taking. As Vivian looks to find her calling professionally, she delights in exploring foreign countries, rolling hillsides, and new cultures. And as a young single woman, she's grown used to experiencing life on her own. But all of that changes when, on one bright spring afternoon in West Belfast, Vivian's path collides with Johnny and culminates in a horrifying act of violence. In the aftermath of the incident, both Johnny and Vivian are forced to confront the chain of events that led to the attack. Vivian must struggle to recapture the woman that she was and the woman she aspired to be, while dealing with a culture and judicial system that treats assault victims as less than human. Johnny, meanwhile, flees to the sanctity of his transitory Irish clan. But when he is finally brought to reckon for his crimes, Vivian learns that justice is not always as swift or as fair as she would hope. Inspired by true events, Dark Chapter is both a literary masterpiece and a riveting novel of suspense about the dark chapters and chance encounters that can irrevocably determine the shape of our lives. On the 17th of July, we have Medievally Blonde by Kate Jacobs. A princess desperate to win back the prince who broke her heart follows him to his kingdom's prestigious military academy, and in doing so falls in love, saves the realm, and continues to look fabulous in this romantic debut fantasy loosely inspired by Legally Blonde. Prince Domel and Princess Clea are a perfect royal match, or so everyone says, until Domel ruins everything by refusing to propose. Heartbroken but determined, Clea makes the perfect plan. Follow Domel to Caislean Costa, the military academy he's attending, show she can protect her kingdom, secure the betrothal. Sure, the castle has a brutal reputation, but how hard can dueling really be? Warrior Ronan promised himself he'd never lose his focus. He fought and sacrificed for his place at Caislean Costa, and he has no time for blonde princesses who waltz into arenas like they're attending a ball, even if she and her otter-like pet are, well, cute. He doesn't want to be intrigued by Clea, but her hunger to prove herself is something he understands. He tells himself there's no harm training her, even if his heart does race around her, even if Domel is his best friend. But as they say, love is a battlefield, and unfortunately for them all, a very real war is looming on the horizon. It's a fight that will threaten all their kingdoms and test all their hearts. Coming on the 17th of July, we have the finale to Juno Dawson's Her Majesty's Royal Coven series called Human Rights. In Her Majesty's Royal Coven, a terrifying prophecy states that the Sullied Child will usher in the reign of Leviathan on Earth. Thankfully, Helen, High Priestess of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, believes that she has identified who that Sullied Child is, a scared teenage girl called Theo, and plans to neutralise the threat. Neve is trying to live her best life peacefully as a vet in Hebden Bridge, using her magic sparingly and having as little to do with HMRC as possible. This all changes when her childhood friend Helen reaches out, needing a witch with Neve's magical abilities to help her with Theo. On the 22nd of July, we have Volatile Memory by Seth Haddon. This is how you lose the Time War meets Ex Machina. Seth Haddon's science fiction debut, Volatile Memory, is a sapphic sci-fi action-adventure novel. With nothing but a limping ship and an outdated mask to her name, Willa needs a big payday. When the call goes out that a lucrative piece of tech is waiting on a nearby planet, she relies on all the swiftness of her prey animal instincts to beat the other hunters to it. What you found wasn't your ticket out. It was my corpse wearing an AI mask. When you touched the mask, you heard my voice, a consciousness spinning through metal and circuits, a bodiless mind, spun to life in the Hawk's temporary storage. I crystallized and realized I was alive. Masks aren't supposed to retain memory, much less identity, but the woman inside the Mark I Hawk is real, and she sees Willa in a way no one ever has. Sees her and doesn't find her wanting or unwhole. Armed with military-grade tech and a lifetime of staying one step ahead of the hunters, Willa and Hawk set off to get answers from the man who discarded Hawk once before, her husband. On the 29th of July, we have Bitten by Jordan Gray. After a vicious werewolf attack on the night of her 17th birthday, Vanessa Hart loses everything she loves in a split second. Her best friend, her father, and even her home. Bitten and imprisoned without explanation, Vanessa endures an agonizing transformation into the very beast that maimed her, and her captors make it clear she cannot escape. She will either swear her life to the Wolf Queen's court or she will die. With no other choice, Vanessa joins their enchanted Castle Severy, where flowering vines grow through the walls, gifts are bestowed by the stars, and a claw can break through skin as easily as silk. But she hasn't forgotten what they stole from her. Vanessa still seeks vengeance, scheming in the shadows even as she finds herself mesmerized by the Golden Prince Sinclair Severy, who threatens to steal her heart, though he is promised to her nemesis, and by his brooding, disgraced cousin Calyx, whose smouldering gaze hides even darker secrets. Immersed in the magic of their whimsical yet cruel society, Vanessa soon learns not all is as it seems. The court is at war, and she may simply be a pawn in its lethal game. On the 5th of August, we have Magic by Liz Shipton, exploring the power of AI and morality. Magic is a new, spicy urban fantasy standalone from TikToker Liz Shipton, perfect for fans of I Am Number 4 and Akatar. What if you wrote a magical computer program? What if that magic computer program started summoning monsters? When 20-something coder Seven Jones goes back to school at a community college in San Diego, the last thing she wants is to join some stupid club, and the last thing she expects is to walk into an underground magic club like actual wizards and shit. Seven reluctantly joins the motley crew of magic weirdos and discovers her own power, but she struggles to control it until she figures out how to channel her magic through an artificially intelligent computer. Unfortunately, there's literally nothing Seven's new friends hate more than AI, and when a student mysteriously turns up dead, blame falls on Seven. Is her creepy artificial magic summoning terrifying creatures to hunt students, or is someone trying to frame her? With only one person, cute ex-Navy SEAL Logan, on her side, Seven fights monsters, dragon, check, kraken, check, while struggling to convince everyone that her AI has nothing to do with them. But how can she convince her peers when she isn't totally convinced herself? The Deathless One by Emma Hamm comes out on the 5th of August. A princess murdered at the altar makes a deal with the god of death for vengeance and to save her people. Jessamine was raised to be a leader for her people, but when the land is overrun by an incurable plague, she must enter a political marriage to save them all. A union that should have brought hope only brings death, as her new husband murders her at the wedding altar and seizes the throne. But her death is just the beginning. Her spirit is met by the Deathless One, a god of death yearning to return to the mortal plane, and he needs her help. The two of them make a deal, her life and the return of her kingdom in exchange for his resurrection. But the Deathless One is a known trickster, and a deal with him is one made in blood. Jessamine knows the Deathless One is a dangerous ally, but the longer they work together, the more she wants him, and the less she can stay away. As their connection deepens, soon she wonders if she even wants this contract to end. Perhaps the more appealing throne is the one by his side, but she'd have to turn her back on her people to get it. Releasing on the 12th of August, we have Wings of Steel and Fury by Sarah J. Daly. The human world is no place for a god, but toiling on earth may just teach an angel how to fly once again. Eleazar Starson, Prince of Splendor and heir to the great throne of honor, is living his worst nightmare. Betrayed and grievously injured, he has been cast from a world of light and beauty to suffer in the below, a world of darkness and despair, populated with demonic ghouls and vile creatures. It is a terrible world, a human world. It is an awful place for a god, especially one as beautiful and brilliant as Eleazar. But broken and lost, he is a god struggling in the mud, his only allies a pair of atheist siblings who would sooner worship a burnt ghoul than show him proper obeisance, and the closest gateway back to splendor is half a world away through a wild and daunting landscape of chaos, monsters and men. He has no choice but to endure the unspeakable horrors of this human place, this war-torn world of carbines and steel railings and smoke-belching factories, not if he wishes to return to splendor and reclaim his place among the Angelus. And he will. Eleazar the Fallen, for the desire for vengeance, glows like molten metal in his godly veins. Crippled as he is, a half-angel no better than a human, he must find a new way to fly, even if it means depending on the strange and frightening technology of the beastly humans. He will return to splendor, or bring splendour crashing down around him. A Girl Without a Voice by Sandra J. Paul comes out on the 12th of August. 22-year-old Alice has never known a normal life. Born mute, her overbearing father isolated her from the outside world while touring it himself as a travelling salesman. The only other significant person in her life is her neighbour Hallie, and they communicate through sign language, which Hallie learned especially for her. Often gone for weeks at a time, Alice's father leaves her in the care of her often fierce and unkind mother. But when Alice's father is diagnosed with terminal cancer, he remains permanently at home. Waking day and night at his deathbed, Alice listens to her father's feverish, drug-induced ramblings until, in his final days, he confesses to having murdered several women. Shocked and disbelieving, Alice confides in Hallie. Together, they vow to find the truth and journey her father's old travel routes connected to various missing women, before discovering the real reason why she lost her ability to speak and how she is connected to her father's crimes. Coming out on the 19th of August is probably my most anticipated. Don't quote me on that, but I am ridiculously excited for this one. And it is Once a Villain by Vanessa Len. This is the third and final book in the Monsters series, which begins with Only a Monster. And this is a quick synopsis for Only a Monster. After an accident results in Joan travelling several hours forward in time, she discovers that she is a monster. Each of the London monster families have a gift unique to their family. However, all monsters share the ability to travel through time by stealing life from a human. Just hours after the revelation of her heritage, Joan comes face to face with a family of monster hunters, and in order to escape with her life, she is forced to travel through time with another monster, Aaron. She desperately hopes to find a way to turn back the clock and stop events from happening, whilst also battling the ethical implication of just how she is able to time travel. And then on the 28th of August, we have Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. Catabasis, a noun, ancient Greek, the story of a hero's descent to the underworld. Two academic rivals from Cambridge must travel to hell to rescue the soul of their advisor. Getting there was easy. Surviving it and each other is another thing entirely. Coming out on the 9th of September, we have The Haunting of William Thorne by Ben Alderson. William Thorne had his life all planned out until he discovered his long-term boyfriend Archie in bed with another man. Distraught, William kicks him out of their home, where tragedy strikes when Archie is killed instantly in a car accident. Riddled with guilt, William is shocked to learn that he's inherited a manor in the quaint village of Stonewall, left to him in Archie's will. He leaves the city with plans to make a new start for himself, but is shocked by the rundown state of the manor and the unwelcoming villagers who want him gone. His only ally is Edward, a seemingly friendly local with secrets of his own. However, it's not only the villagers who are adverse to his presence. A malevolent spirit roams the manor, one that seeks to drive William out for good. But when he uncovers the heartbreaking tale of two men in love in the 1920s, William strives to find peace for the spirit, ending the haunting once and for all. But what dark secrets lie hidden in the manor's walls? And will William be able to put aside his own grief to save his new home and his life? On the 11th of September, we have Cleopatra by Sarah El-Arifi. After the death of her father, 19-year-old Cleopatra is thrust upon the throne, unaware what the next 20 years would bring. Blessed by the goddess Isis, Cleopatra's reign is plagued by Roman intervention that even her deity cannot stop. She must navigate the Roman civil war, the wrath of the gods, but most of all, the allure of love. Writing back to the millennia of propaganda and myth-making, El-Arifi weaves together a never-seen-before rendition of Cleopatra. On the 16th of September, we have All Hail Chaos by Sarah Rees Brennan. This is the sequel to Long Live Evil, part of the Time of Iron series. And a quick wee synopsis of Long Live Evil. On her deathbed in hospital, Rachel is offered a strange deal. She can escape her life and enter into the world of her favourite book series. The catch? She becomes the despised villain Rahela, otherwise known as the Beauty Dipped in Blood. It gets worse. She arrives as she has been sentenced to death. Ray thinks she knows the story, so she schemes her way into not only saving her skin, but also seeking to undo the injustices from the book series. There's a problem with this though. She has never actually read the first book. On the 23rd of September, we have Terms of Service by Seal Pirlo. When her cousin gets kidnapped by a dastardly trickster, Louisa is forced to sell herself in servitude to the Eoi in exchange for his life, but the terms of the deal turn out to be much more complicated than she ever imagined. Louisa N.E. Drainway never thought too much about the Astrosi. They lurk above and below Bastion City, a giant multi-level megalopolis she calls her home, and they tend to keep to themselves. On the rare occasions they use their magics to meddle with human affairs, most people with an ounce of sense steer clear of whichever unfortunate soul happens to be their victim. Louisa is far too dedicated to repairing and maintaining the frequently damaged Bastion to pay them much attention, and prefers to ignore the Astrosi just like everyone else. That disregard gets blown out of the water when a rogue Astrosi, a nefarious trickster named Carrion, kidnaps her nephew and sells him to the Eoi, one of the Astrosi courts. With no other option to save her nephew, Louisa trades her life for his and finds herself in service of the Eoi. Unfortunately for her, Astrosi logic is acrobatic in ways even the most devious human mind can barely comprehend. It's not until the deal is struck that she realizes she's trapped in the most abstruse verbal contract imaginable. She is essentially conscripted into their ranks, and her devotion to her city becomes stretched to breaking point by her new master's orders. As she struggles under this weight, she begins to uncover the secrets of the Astrosi people, the internal battles for power between the two kingdoms, the never-ending conflict between them, the trickster Carrion who somehow bridges that gap, and the very nature of Bastion itself. Coming out on the 25th of September, we have The Maiden and Her Monster by Maddie Martinez. Uprooted meets The Wolf and the Woodsman in The Maiden and Her Monster, a sapphic retelling of the Jewish myth of Golem. When a young woman is forced to venture into a cursed forest to capture the monster hunting the girls of her village, she discovers a disgraced golem ready to confess, but only if she agrees to help fulfill an ancient promise first, a bargain that unravels a much more dangerous threat to her people and forces her to face growing feelings for the very creature she was taught to fear. On the 30th of September, we have the finale to Sierra Simone's Lioness trilogy, Bitterburn. The first book in this series is Salt Kiss, and a brief wee synopsis of that is as follows. Reimagining the story of Tristan and Isolde in contemporary DC, this book is blisteringly sexy and full of secrets. Mark Trevenna is owner of the ultra-exclusive kink club Lioness. He is arranged to marry Isolde Lawrence for reasons known only to himself. Many years after they were originally engaged, it is time for the two to finally get married. However, an injury leaves him unable to collect Isolde from Ireland, so he sends his most trusted guard and lover in his stead, Tristan Thomas. Initially, interactions between Isolde and Tristan are frosty at best, but as their time on Mark's yacht passes, they grow closer and closer until the connection between them becomes utterly undeniable. Bonding over their unrequited love for the enigmatic Mark, they fall into one another's arms. Things can only end in pain. On the 7th of October, we have another book from S.C. Gibson called Savage Blooms. Wuthering Heights meets The Cruel Prince. For as long as Adam can remember, the legends passed down from his world-travelling grandfather have called him to a crumbling manor in the Highlands. His closest friend Nicola longs for the same adventure, as well as for Adam himself. She'll follow him just about anywhere, even to the remote wilds of Scotland, if it pushes the pair to surrender to their shared attraction. But when a storm strikes and strands them unexpectedly, Adam and Nicola find themselves at the mercy of the eccentric owner of the infamous house, Eileen, as well as her brooding groundskeeper, Finlay. Trapped by the weather and bound by ancient fairy magic, Nicola and Adam get more than they bargained for as they become entangled in Eileen and Finley's world of mind games, deceit, and forbidden desire. As ancestral sins are unearthed, Adam and Nicola will have to reckon with the spell Eileen and Finley have cast over them, and whether or not they even want to be free. On the 7th of October, the sequel to When the Moon Hatched, which is part of the Moonfall series by Sarah A. Parker, comes out, and that is The Ballad of Fallen Dragons. I have a hard time describing what When the Moon Hatched is about, so here's a blurb from Storygraph. He's fire and brimstone, I'm shattered ice. I'll gladly burn beneath him until the world comes crumbling down. As an assassin for the rebellion, Rave's job is to complete orders and never get caught. When a rival bounty hunter shatters her world, Rave finds herself captured by the Guild of Nobles, a group powerful fae. Crushed by the loss of his great love, Dragon Rider Khan Vega took the head of a king and donned his melted crown. Now on a tireless quest to quell the never-ending ache in his chest, a clue lures him into the capital's high-security prison, where he stumbles upon the imprisoned Rave. Together, they seek truths that threaten to unravel everything they knew about their world and each other. On the 12th of October, we have His Made by Vengeance by Mel H.S. This is part of the Lunetti Pack series. However, each of the books can be read as standalones. Rocco is being punished and he doesn't like it. He probably shouldn't have seduced and stalked the police chief's son, but he'd been bored and no one ever should have noticed. His powers as an air witch, skilled in illusion, are too valuable for the Elemental Mayhem MC to let him go. So they forced him into this sham of a wedding. They're lucky the wolf shifter is so hot or he'd never go along with it. All bets are off once he can prove he was betrayed. Emilio spent the last 15 years away from New Trinity, refining his craft, street art and assassination, but he's still loyal to the Lunetti Pack. Unlike his traitor father, he'd do anything for his alpha, even marry a witch he's never met. Coming home for his arranged marriage is the perfect excuse to hunt the source of the dangerous weapons entering the city. He has every intention of being a widower within a year, until he realizes his fiancée is his mate. How is he supposed to arrange an unfortunate accident for his husband with his wolf whining about forever in his ear? On the 14th of October, we've got a new book from Jennifer Kennedy. The title is still to be announced at the point this video goes up. A darkly gothic feminist tale inspired by the legend of Bluebeard. When she's accused of witchcraft, Fortune must flee her village to spare her neck, marrying a man she barely knows. But is the man who promised to be her saviour all he seems? On the 28th of October, we have The Sound of Dark by Daniel Church, set around a disused military installation which seems to be emitting ghost sounds. These were recorded by an artist, Tony Mathias, for a radio programme, but he mysteriously went mad and killed his family instead. A young woman, Callie, gets a chance to solve this mystery and gain an exclusive story for her podcast. Along the way, she collects allies, including Tony's actress sister Stella, but before long, the intelligences behind the voices become manifest, threatening their sanity and more. Also, on the 28th of October, we've got Tasha Sori's Incarnadine. A knight and a witch must change the fate of magic and the world by altering the end of their story. Pitched as Green Knight meets the Starless Sea with reincarnation. Another book coming out on the 28th of October is Hazelthorn by C.G. Drews. Evander has lived like a ghost in the forgotten corners of the Hazelthorn estate ever since he was taken in by his reclusive billionaire guardian, Byron Lennox Hall, when he was a child. For his safety, Evander has been given 3 ironclad rules to follow. He can never leave the estate, he can never go into the gardens, and most importantly, he can never again be left alone with Byron's charming, underachieving grandson, Laurie. The last rule has been in place ever since Laurie tried to kill Evander 7 years ago, and yet somehow Evander is still obsessed with him. When Byron suddenly dies, Evander inherits Hazelthorn's immense Gothic mansion and acres of sprawling grounds, along with the entirety of the Lennox Hall family's vast wealth. But Evander's sure his guardian was murdered, and Laurie may be the only one who can help him find the killer before they come for Evander next. Perhaps even more concerning is how the overgrown garden is refusing to stay behind its walls, slipping its vines and spores deeper into the house with each passing day. As the family's dark secrets unravel, alongside the growing horror of their terribly alive, bloodthirsty garden, Evander needs to find out what he's really inheriting before the garden demands to be fed once more. On November 11th, we have Project Honeyman by Stuart Hodson. The ship needed to hear voices, to know he was not alone. The pilot thought they were going to fight an enemy, to find someone responsible and mete out justice. The interlocutor thought they were going to help. The ship only wanted to hear the chaos of life and know he wasn't alone amongst the stars. The Arcology is a pan-galactic utopia whose people live entirely online. Tired of paradise, Prathenthi Prab Sal has had herself printed into the physical world of Sirija's Reach, working as an interlocutor, a go-between for the Arcology and the cultures it meets in flesh and blood. One evening, after a call with her family, who were pressuring her to abandon her body and rejoin the Arcology, the city stops completely. Nothing electronic works anymore. Terrified that the Arcology has just up and disappeared, she receives a call for help from a ship in dock whose pilot, Kircher, is a prisoner printed into a body to serve out his sentence in the physical world. Between them, they discover it's not just her planet, but the entire Arcology that's gone missing. If they don't find out what's going on, it could be the end of everyone and everything that calls the Arcology home. Their only resource is their living ship, into which all the knowledge and culture of the Arcology has been downloaded. Asked to be a life raft for the Arcology, the ship, a frigate without a name, is dying, slowly being swallowed whole by the literal universe of information it's been asked to carry, featuring worlds made entirely from gold, an enemy who has no consciousness, allies made of light-gen, and the grand ring world of Arkanda, the physical heart of the Arcology. Prab and Kircher will need to put aside their dislike of each other and the Arcology if they're to help their ship and save anything at all. Can they restore the possibility of hope to their lives? On the 19th of November, we have A Rather Vengeful Accord by Danielle Knight. Sir Pendergast is an elite college for necromancers and gladiators, promising glory to those who can perfect the arcane arts of graving or spiring. Graving is the notorious act of raising the dead and shaping their decaying flesh into eldritch abominations. Spiring is divine-fueled combat against undead horrors in grand arenas, thrilling crowds of thousands. Helen Kilquire would kill and resurrect anything to study graving at Sir Pendergast, under the guidance of her hero, Master Necromancer Mortritus. But Hal cannot enlist alone. The only way she can secure admission is to enter a dangerous accord with her mortal rival, Alistair Fulton, accomplished spirer and the infuriating, formidable, exiled scion of the great Fulton dynasty. If they team up as Spira gladiators, fighting gruesome creatures in a cutthroat competition, they could both earn their prestigious places at the college. As Hal and Alistair fight grisly monsters and ghastly peers side by side, mending their years-long feud in the resplendent halls of the college, Hal faces the horrors of graving, spiring, and the revolting prospect of a romance with her own nemesis. Perfect for fans of Gideon the Ninth and A Deadly Education. The Bookshop Below by Georgia Summers comes out on the 20th of November. The bookshop must have an owner. If you want a story that will change your life, Chiron's Bookshop is where you go. For those lucky enough to grace its doors, it's a glimpse into a world of deadly bargains and powerful, magical books. For Cassandra Fairfax, it's a reminder of everything she lost when Chiron kicked her out and all but shuttered the shop. Since then, she's used her skills in less ethical ways, trading stolen books and magical readings to wealthy playboys looking for power money can't buy. Then Chiron dies, and if Cassandra knows anything, it's this: the bookshop must always have an owner. To restore the shop, she needs the help of Lowell Sharp, a rival bookseller who's everything Cassandra is not and knows it too. But as she is plunged into a world of unscrupulous collectors, deadly ink magic, and shady societies, a dark force threatens to unravel the bookshops entirely. On the 25th of November, Sarah Broadway has a book coming out called Queen of the Dead. Speaking with the dead is nothing new for Lou. It's a curse she's learned to hide from everyone, sometimes even herself. After running away from a past that took advantage of those abilities, Lou finally carves out a normal life for herself. That is, until she receives a mysterious message from a ghost. The veil is thinning and a cult of necromancers infiltrates her small town. In a race to discover and defeat her foe, Lou learns she's not alone in the fight. She grudgingly leans on her allies but wonders who to trust. What's more impossible is suddenly finding herself the romantic interest of a man who somehow isn't afraid of all the dark, creepy things about her, but even he has secrets for her to discover. Time is running out and reality seems to be slipping away. To save her new life and the people she loves, Lou must learn to accept who she is and embrace her true abilities, no matter where they might take her. On the 2nd of December, The Edge of Noon by Daria Bobileva comes out. This is a translated work. The residents of a village outside Moscow wake up to discover that the road out to the motorway has disappeared without a trace, and the usual paths into the woods somehow lead back to the village. And the woods, overnight their weedy and rubbish-strewn copse, has become a dark and overgrown forest inhabited by something mysterious and unfriendly. Anyone who makes it into the trees either vanishes into thin air or returns not quite themselves. And of course, the internet, radio, and TV have stopped working and the weather never changes, and time seems to loop seamlessly from one crop of animals and cabbages into the next. There are strange noises and strange visitations. The villagers are plagued by odd thoughts and desires, and quiet but pervasive voices call from the river. Objects mutate, phones and radios emit strange mutterings, people disappear. What begins as a one-sided manifestation of the weird becomes weirder still as the villagers split into factions and odd alliances with new neighbours are formed. Meanwhile, the forest looms closer every day. Is Katya, a solitary young woman, the only one beginning to glimpse what is going on? And the last section of titles are ones that don't have a release date. The first few do have a bit of a blurb, but then I've got a selection of them that very little is known about them, except they are anticipated to come out next year. The Witch Who Chases the Sun by Dawn Chen is slated for the summer. This story starts at the very end. Two witches born to opposing sides of a blood feud meet again a decade after the war that ripped their found family apart. Will this chance reunion enable them to pick up the pieces and rekindle old flames, or are shattered dreams best left buried? Violet Thistlethwaite is not a villain anymore by Emily Krempholtz, and this is slated for the fall. A cozy fantasy about a powerful plant witch who, after the Dark Lord she's served her whole life is vanquished, decided to turn over a new leaf and opens a flower shop in a quirky little town. But when a magical plague threatens her community, she has to team up with the grumpy alchemist next door to save the day. Slated for winter, we have Cameron Johnston's newest title, which the title itself hasn't been announced yet. Whitlaw Goddard, former chief of the Unity's Research and Design Workshop, stands on the gallows, condemned for heresy, among other crimes. Beside him stands Commissar Taban Tereskova, his counterpart from the Rangers Empire. In the crowd below, Goddard's daughter watches the proceedings. 3 years earlier, Ella Pickering is stuck in a never-ending cycle of debt and pain. Formerly a Unity Sky Mage, trained to fly ships for scouting and ferrying supplies to mountainous regions. She is now in a wheelchair after poor maintenance led to a sky ship crash, a disability her world makes no accommodations for. To pay off her debt, Ella works grueling shifts on a production line, making magical weapons for the Research and Design Workshop. After a late-night double shift, Ella witnesses a lightning strike hit an arcane experiment by Jack and Grissom, causing the device to morph into a crude rocket heading straight for the moon, the home world of the gods. Before it fails and crashes somewhere in no man's land, the contested border between the Unity and Ranius Empire. Imbued with this new knowledge of technology, Ella and Jaqen team up and begin working on a device that could possibly take them to the land of the gods. But as more people get roped into the plot, will they be able to keep it under wraps, or will word of their heresy lead them to more danger than they first anticipated? The last one of the titles that we actually have a synopsis for, I'm just going to warn you, involves spiders, so if that's something that is not a vibe for you, please just skip ahead. Silk by Chloe Spencer. After surviving a traumatic event, Shannon is grappling with the throes of PTSD and adjusting to a new life with her disability. Her recovery process is further complicated when her husband gets a new job where he has to travel and consequently forces her to leave the house. One day, Shannon is leaving her home when she encounters a gorgeous spider. In therapy sessions, and curled up in her bed at night, Shannon begins to learn more about spiders and starts to fantasize about them. After rescuing the spider from the mean-spirited neighbor kids, Shannon discovers the spider is an arachne, a half-spider, half-human woman derived from Greek mythology. Infatuated with her kindness, the arachne, by the name of Ruth, declares she wants to pursue Shannon romantically. But as time progresses and the two grow closer, Shannon's relationship with her husband deteriorates, and she learns that forging a new path for herself alongside Ruth may have a steep price paid in blood. Part erotic horror, part weird horror, all feminist horror. And this last section of books, as I say, not that much is known about them, and we don't have solid release dates, but I am anticipating all of them in 2025. So from Nicole M. Rubino, we have 2 titles slated for July and October, respectively. We have an untitled Circe novella, and we have book 3 in the main Monstrous series, which is going to be the finale to the series, and the title for that is still to be announced. And then from Sophie Snow, we're expecting book 3 in the Spicy in Seattle series. That should be Sierra and Rosa's story, if you've read any of the other books in the Spicy in Seattle series. Then we've also got book 2 in the Wintermore series, whose title has not been announced yet, and I think that's the last book. Amazing! We've made it to the end. Yay! Okay, so that ended up being somewhat of a marathon video. I hope something intrigued you and caught your eye. I would love to know in the comments which of the titles, or you don't have to just pick one, but like which of the titles on my list most have kind of caught your eye. And do let me know any books you are anticipating in 2025, because I would love to know. But I just want to say thank you for sticking around with me for this whole video, and until next time, love you, bye.